Trone. I got it right. Russell Verrett.
Not here.
Richard Verrett.
Nope, not here.
Kenneth Savage. Robert Kiritz. Daniel Wakefield.
Not here.
Joseph Lunga.
Yeah.
Paul Lefkowitz. I got it right now?
Yes.
Raymond Pace.
Not here.
Margaret Lawler. Patrick John
Jasinski. Not here.
Colleen Hill. Romeo Sumag. Annette Guerrera. Faye. Smuggy. George Corman.
He's here.
Judith Forster.
No, not Colin.
Stephen Farrell. Majori Riley. Erickson. Sigrid. And finally, Frank.
Is there anybody we missed? I don't think so, but no. Okay.
Yeah.
Chief, you'll see that those will be distributed. Thank you. Before I read our proclamation, is there any member of the council that would like to say a few words? Ms. Paul?
I just wanted to say that the crossing guard in our neighborhood is Pat, who walked our son across the very busy county road, unforgiving county road, and has been at that post for probably 12 years? 13. And I can speak for most of the people on our block and in our neighborhood, and we very much consider him a part of our community and our neighborhood. So thank you very much.
I would wonder how many of you actually realize how fondly the school, especially those of you that are fortunate enough to be right in front of one of the schools. I mean, or how the school population, that not only the kids, but the parents and the administrators really feel that you're part of the school and a well-loved part of the school. And I think that I'm going to take the opportunity to read this proclamation, and I believe it says a lot of the things we've been talking about. Whereas crossing guards, by the nature of their job, encourage our children, our school children, to walk to school, and in doing so, promote a healthy lifestyle. And whereas crossing guards keep our children safe, regardless of the weather, snow, rain, cold, wind, and heat are some of the hardships they face on a daily basis, never mind careless drivers. And whereas crossing guards, by their professional yet warm and friendly demeanor, cultivate a welcoming and warm atmosphere for our children as they approach our schools. And whereas walking to school fosters a healthy lifestyle, which is the central theme of the Mayor's Wellness Campaign. And whereas the Mayor's Wellness Campaign wishes to recognize individuals and groups that help a community become physically active. And therefore, today, June the 16th, 2015, the Mayor's Wellness Campaign and the Mayor and Council have selected each and every Tenafly crossing guard to be inducted into the Tenafly Mayor's Wellness Campaign Hall of Fame, We thank you for your service and recognize all that you do for our children and our community. Thank you very much. And in closing, we want to announce that tomorrow is going to be sunny and 75 degrees. Thank you very much for coming by. We'll take a 2-minute recess just in case you don't want to hear the rest of our meeting. Okay, so audience remarks for agenda items. Anybody care to speak on an agenda item? Okay, I'll accept the motion. What? Entertain, thank you very much. Sure, well, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Bash?
I'm voting yes on all of them with the exception of Q, which is the ratified collective bargaining agreement, where I vote no.
Okay. Councilmember Lamastra?
Yes for all except G.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefanowicz?
Yes.
Councilmember Zina?
Yes.
Okay, committee reports. I'll start to my left. Paul, you have anything?
Zoning Board met the 1st of June. It was a light meeting. One matter was carried over and resolved, and there were 2 new matters. One was only for offense, so it wasn't a major meeting. HPC met the following Thursday, the 4th. They discussed the planning board hearings on the 87 County Road, Charlie Brown's building. They discussed the Open Space Commission about 53 Knickerbocker. Dave Wall, the chair, received a Historic Leadership Award from the county in Hackensack, and they were raising an idea that the HPC submit a report to the mayor and council to recommend taking over some more responsibility for upkeep of the railroad station as far as administratively. And that's all.
Thank you. Max, you have anything?
Yes, the Youth Service Advisory Committee met on June 3rd, and this is becoming a very crowded place. On Monday, there were 80 people, then on Thursday and Friday, over 100 people, and the numbers are basically grading during the warmer weather, so it's very, very well utilized. As far as the summer camp is concerned, so far, as of June 3rd, there were 94 applications for campers for camp, and there were 5 refunds and no cancellations. They are expecting to have at least another 15 to 20 extra campers by the time the camp starts. And the income as of that date was about $73,000 with about already deposits of $72,000. The request from the group was that the mayor council approve a resolution regarding the loyalty family discount, and as also the additions about who is going to be counted as resident or not. Both resolutions are within the package, so they're done.
Mayor?
Do you happen to know? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, when you're done, I have a
Do you
question for
happen to
Max.
know if the numbers are the same as last year as far as the camp? Or
So
higher?
far, the numbers are higher than last year.
Okay, good. Mark runs a very good camp. Mark?
Max, you said the attendance at the youth center was increasing.
Yes.
So is there any issue over the size of the space? Is that something for the future to be discussed or no?
There is no issue with the size of the space. Mark is looking to buy pretty much a shed where he was going to try to put some of the tools to make more room, but he believes that he can handle the amount of people with the existing facilities.
Okay, thank you.
2 things. One is, I believe, and Nadia, you might remember this, I think more often than not, this time of year, there's usually higher numbers.
Yeah.
The weather is nicer, the kids get out. You might also suggest to him, Mark, I don't know if there's any space in the snack shack. You know, we have all that storage area there. I know the recreation uses it. But you might want to suggest that if I see Mark, I'll ask him to inquire with Matt as to whether there's any room for any of his stuff in there. Because we have a lot of storage space there. Nadia, you have anything?
Yep. Welcome Committee met yesterday. They were busy preparing or stuffing the envelopes for our new resident event, which I'll give you a save the date, Tuesday, September 1st, 6 to 8, so you'll be getting your invitations shortly.
It's before Labor Day, but after school when does school start? I think that's the day the school starts, right? September 1st?
It may be, I'm not sure. They are starting before Labor Day this year. And just as a note for the governing body, because of the Brightview residents moving, soon to move into that community there, the Welcome Committee has put together packets, not the entire book, but packets just for the use of those residents as well. They've put together 50 of them already, so that those residents of that community will be served as well.
Great idea.
And they also are going to prepare something for when the residents move into, Tenafly Road. So something put together for those residents as well. So when we have these larger developments like this, they are on top of meeting the needs of those residents as well. According to the Welcome Committee, there were 36 new residents or families that moved into the community last month. 21 were renters and 15 new owners.
Are these renters primarily single-family homes? They're renting the home?
You know what? I don't know. I don't have
Just
those
curious.
statistics. Just what we get from our board that says 36 new resident families to the community.
Okay.
I can find out following month. Recreation also met, and I'm just trying to get to my notes in the book. I had reported, I guess a meeting or two ago, about the Montvale tournament and the U10 girls or 10U girls actually placing in the tournament, and we have never placed in this tournament. We haven't come anywhere near in any of our age groups. They placed first in their age group. So it really is quite an accomplishment for softball, and I really want to see if we could recognize that group of girls, maybe at the next meeting before people go away to camp. So if that would be,
Well, ask Matt to reach out to the coach.
Yes.
And find out if they're receptive to coming to the next meeting. If they are, we'll do it.
okay.
And Nadia, how many girls was that?
How many? What age? 10U.
No, how many of the?
I don't know how many are on the team.
If you get me those names.
Okay. All right, great. That would be wonderful. That'll be June 30th, yeah. One of the big issues at the last recreation meeting were about over 20 adults came in to talk about soccer. This is a group of parents who are coaches in the soccer group, the soccer league, and they have formed their own division underneath soccer, which would make them a co-sponsored sport of recreation. They've put in permits. They take any time during the week. They have some time in the municipal field and some time on the grass high school field. They did complain or come in to comment that why could they get some time on Geisinger Field? Because permits for Geisinger Field for this particular group were denied. So there is some discussion going back and forth. I believe a group of the men tonight are going over to the Board of Ed meeting, again to discuss the possibility of having time on Geisinger Field. So there was some discussion as to whether or not that was anywhere in our licensing agreement. The initial answer from the board were no adult programs on the field. So I really would like for joint use or Jewel or somehow for this board to communicate with the Board of Ed to find out exactly if that is a new policy. I don't remember it from the licensing agreement. It was X amount of hours, I believe 60 during the summer, allocated to recreation programs. Peter, I don't know if you know more than I do on this.
I had a long discussion with Matt about it. First of all, and Mark, you're on joint
Yep.
use. I seem to recall during our discussions, and if you recall, there was a lot of discussion about use of the track, the hours for the residents using the track. We worked out a pretty good compromise there. But it seemed to me at some point in time, it was mentioned by members of the Board of Ed that they didn't want any adult sports on Geisinger, although in my mind no reason was given. Now we didn't approve it. This was, basically the Board of Ed has the final say. There is a priority list where the school events go first, then it's recreation, and so we do have hours on the field. That's not a dispute, but I don't believe they gave any reason other than no adult sports in Geisinger for why those permits were denied. Now, what Matt has told me is that they do get permits for the field, the grass fields
Yes.
behind the high school. But the men would prefer Geisinger if it's available. And for example, tonight, because of the weather, the rain, the storms we had all day, the fields behind the high school are unplayable. You could go on Geisinger Field like you go on the municipal field 5 minutes after it rains. So, one of the things that bothered me was an email on which I was copied, because when the men's group sent the emails out, they copied me, and I got copied on the response from the BA at the school board, was that there was an agreement between the borough and the board prohibiting adult sports on Geisinger, and that is certainly not the case.
Yeah.
Right, so I attended all the meetings also, and I agree with the mayor. We discussed a whole host of different issues, and most significant was the priority of who gets to use the field, how many hours we get to use the field, and that sort of debate. But it was never to exclude adults from the borough's allotted timeframe.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, unfortunately, they have some municipal time, but they're also competing against softball, baseball, other programs on our field. So, Matt has generously squeezed them in where he could. And this is an example of some adults in the community that want to be active, that, want to have some camaraderie and play together. And they are they're not asking for specific days, but they want the ability to use the turf. And if it's not being used, then why can't we use it? So I really would appreciate,
Is the Board of Ed discussing it this evening?
Yeah, well, they're going to go in
They're
public
going again to
comment.
the Board of Ed.
And
Okay.
I would assume it will be discussed, but, if a resolution isn't attained tonight, we should put it on the next joint use work, agenda.
I think one of the issues is the extent to which groups who want to use any of the facilities get to designate the facility versus requesting a time, and we advise them of what is available. So for instance, if a group specifically wanted or requested Geisinger, but municipal field was available, does that mean that they can't be assigned to municipal
No,
field?
it doesn't mean that at all. Matt does a terrific job of working what fields are available, except that.
Coordinating with the AD.
Coordinating, but our field is at capacity, so we can't schedule them any more than once a week on that field. So the next best thing is, we don't have any other fields that are available, so the next best thing is Matt calls over the Board of Ed, the permits filed there, they have the grass field at the Board of Ed, but they're wondering if the Geisinger field is empty and we're not using our 60 allotted hours that we're getting per week in the summer, what's the reason behind them not being assigned to that field? That's their question.
I don't think they're being unreasonable, but we also have to understand that they are getting the amount of field use they requested.
Yes, they definitely
It's
get the
just
amount of
that
field.
they're saying if
They want a
Geisinger is
specific
available, they'd
location.
like Geisinger. And I can understand that, everybody wants to play on the best field.
One other committee, Open Space, met, and I don't remember reporting, or Mark reporting the last time, but maybe we did. We talked about Andy coming to the meeting. Did we talk about Andy?
Right,
Open
about
Space
Andy
Committee?
Hippolyte, who came.
Andy Hippolyte, the borough engineer, came to the meeting and spoke to us about the feasibility of using the space at the swim clubs. And we had great discussions there with Open Space, so I think they did speak about this last time, because we are gonna break into the two subcommittees. But there seems to be some renewed interest, and I'd like to see if we can put it on the next work session with regard to 53 Knickerbocker, and the council looking at what possibilities and options are to purchase 53 Knickerbocker, to really give it some more discussion rather than an all or nothing discussion, and really try to brainstorm saving some possibility of that property.
As a matter of fact, in the new business, I would like to have open up the issue of 53 Knickerbocker to be discussed by the council at next meeting.
Well, that's exactly what she just said.
I just asked for it.
Yeah, perfect.
So, because
We'll go ahead and we'll put that on, let's that on the next work session agenda, please.
there was a small meeting today that was I guess an out brancher of the Open Space Committee with Rita Heller, T. Robin Brown, the
Consultant,
expert, the
right.
consultant that the HPC uses, Jeff Miller from the Environmental Commission, Karen News, and we met in the conference room to see if there were availability of county funds and what the county has been giving in terms of open space, which we basically know. But there are thoughts about what combinations we could proceed with to maybe save that piece of property.
Okay,
So-
well, and another thing that came on my radar screen was the fact that the DEP, the state DEP, released over $100 million in funding for Green Acres projects. I got that on Friday. I called down there to find out. And of course, the answers that I got were, it's not likely that they're going to fund the purchase of a property, which is what they actually did a couple of years ago up on the hill. But, and of course, not necessarily to the tune of $6 million either. So I think we ought to do a little
Well, they were
brainstorming.
talking today about brainstorming, and maybe we should invite several of the people that are closely connected with this, like the HPC, to be in with our discussions if the council agrees.
Yes.
They were talking about some kind of joint effort. Maybe we're not going to purchase it all, but a joint effort with the developer, a developer or several developers, to give us ideas on how to proceed, how to save the building, how to develop a portion, how to make everyone happy.
The problem, as I see it, the building is set back.
Yep.
Okay, and as one person said to me, I guess he wasn't really much an open space advocate, he said, he never sees the building.
Yeah.
Because it's so far set back. And if we were to save the building and allow development in some of the open space, the development is in front of the building. So once again, you'd have a historic building that's buried behind
Yeah, but maybe we can make it
homes.
like an kind of
Yeah,
enclosed community.
there are
were
other
some
ways to do
ideas
it.
That came out today, and one of the major points that came out of open space is that maybe this is what the fund was really for, is to preserve larger tracts of land. It's not about having a pocket park here and a pocket park there, but to preserve the beauty of Tenafly and the open space of Tenafly. And if we're not going to use it for this, then what, we're not going to use the funds for this, then what are we going to use the funds for? This is the biggest example of saving space that we could do.
There's really two questions here. One is how to go about getting the property. I think
Yep.
everybody would like to have the property saved, the whole 6 acres, including the house. But then the second part of the equation is, what do you do with it?
Yep.
Once it's saved?
And that's the brainstorming that we need.
The good example was what happened over at 91 West Clinton. The borough purchased that
Yep.
property, I think it was about $500,000, which is significant money
Back then.
20 years ago. And it just sat there, boarded up, deteriorating for about 10 years with no purpose at all, until it was basically turned over to a nursery school / art gallery. The good news is the building was saved. The bad news was, from a financial perspective, I'm not sure we did our taxpayers justice in spending money with no plan. So, ideally, we come up with a way of financing this, but at the same time, figuring out how can this property serve our community?
Yeah, that's what we really need.
Anything
Have that
else?
kind of discussion. I think that's it.
Okay, Mark, you have anything?
Okay, so I listened to the tapes from last week, and there were conversations about the bid. So based on the committee reports and old business, let's just talk about it now. So kind of just to run quickly through it, because everyone discussed it a little bit last week, the thought was that we reconstitute the board from 11 to 7 members, and I know there was conversation about how the makeup of that would be. Have an administrative person who is an employee of the borough, and the theory behind that is they would put 2 to 3 hours every week into the administrative efforts to help support the bid, because that would help share the burden of what it would cost to run the bid with all the taxpayers in Tenafly to some certain little degree there, as opposed to just the property owners of the bid. And third,
Are you talking about, I know it's at the thought stage. I mean, the bid has a significant amount of money. Would they be paying the salary of that person out of that money, or are you expecting this money to come out of the operating budget?
okay, we would expect it to come out of the operating budget. So the thought, again, it's in the thought stage, and the thought behind it is that while the bid benefits the business district, it also benefits the whole community as a whole. So it's not that far of a stretch for the whole community to chip in a little bit to help support the bid. And if we're reconstituting the bid, what's that?
The bid is a district, it is a subset.
Yeah, I understand that. So this is an idea. We haven't been hung up on all the regularities and the rules of what we're allowed and not allowed to do based on what a bid is. We're putting these ideas out there to see if any of it makes sense. And the last issue, of course, was to focus on economic development and how we address underutilized or vacant properties and get them developed and under use. And someone put an idea in my head today as a potential, and I haven't discussed this with Nadia or anybody else yet, connected with the theater as... Oh, okay, so maybe the same person spoke to both of us. The idea that one of the first projects of the new reconstituted bid were to somehow save the theater, make it a community theater, whatever that might mean, figure out how to raise the money to purchase it, as one of the properties that the bid might own, to potentially even provide them with operating income to function. So there's lots of different ideas there, and granted, the devil is in the details, but that's opening the discussion.
When is the bid going to resume assessments?
Well, we
Not at all.
It's not even on the table yet at this point.
Yeah, do you have anything?
Yeah, to add to the theater issue, Freeholder Zur, my old boss, floated an idea by me and Nadia. There's a resident of Tenafly with an autistic child who loves special needs programs. And he found out there is a movie theater in Connecticut owned by a philanthropist, and it runs completely with a full 100% staff of special needs employees. So they are exploring that option. I connected Freeholder with Nadia and Stephanie, so they will be...
We're going to explore that option.
Yep, they're going to start exploring that option. I think it's a great fit with the housing in Tenafly.
Well, especially with the special needs.
Housing.
Well, I was going to wait till new business, but it's going to be in the newspapers tomorrow. I'm creating a committee to study saving the Tenafly Theater. And certainly we want representatives of the bid to be on that committee, a council person or two wants to be on the committee as well, opening it up to, this was put in my mind over the last 2 weeks by a number of really people that I have a lot of respect for in town as doers and workers, suggesting that this is one avenue we could take. And so I'm very interested in doing this, and it's going to come to fruition very quickly. There's three areas that I believe we need to address quickly, and that would be at the first committee meeting. And one is we have to get the status of the building as it is now, where the owners stand. We also, I want to reach out to the Bergen PAC, because I want to do something in a manner that does not compete with them, because there's only so many dollars around and so many volunteers, and there are people that have been involved with Bergen PAC that might be willing to work with us as long as we're not competing with them, and we want to complement them rather than compete with them. And last but not least, there's a number of similar situations throughout the country. One that was brought to my attention today was Providence, where they saved the theater. In Pelham, New York, which is right across the river in Westchester, residents saved that picture house, and now it's really one of the focal points of I hate to use the term society in Pelham. So many events go through that theater, and at the same time, it's still a working theater, but it's become viable again. And look what happened in Teaneck, where they saved that theater. So there's lots of things that we need to consider, and I believe we have the people, and in this particular case, I don't think we'll have any problem getting the interest to save the theater, because on top of everything else, if we lose the theater, it really is a devastating blow to our downtown. So
That's great.
we'll get together with it. We'll work on it, we'll brainstorm and see where we can go with it. If there's no other committee reports, old or new business, we'll put the open space on the 53 Knickerbocker on the agenda for next week. Audience remarks for non-agenda items, anybody? Okay,
Oh, we got one.
Wait,
please.
any,
Yeah,
Yes.
any subject
Anything
matter.
goes.
You just need to come up to the microphone and give us your name, and if you live in Tenafly, you just use the street you live on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is James Irwin. I live at 40 Jefferson Street, Hackensack, New Jersey. For disclosure purposes, I work for North Jersey Media Group, which is the parent company of The Record, and Suburbanite, which covers the town. I am not here in that capacity. I'm here as your neighbor and your friend. I was born in Inglewood, New Jersey, played many basketball games at the courts, had the opportunity to run in your 5K race one time, but I'm no stranger to Tenafly. My mother worked at Inglewood Hospital, medical center that serves this beautiful town, 45 years, and she retired a couple years ago. She worked on the oncology floor. If you don't know, oncology deals with infusion and issues relating with cancer. My father died when I was born of pancreatic cancer at the age of 33. He had 4 brothers. They all died of cancer. 2 of lung cancer, 2 of prostate. I come before you today, as I have to other legislators like yourself. I'm going to the towns of Bergen County, asking them to raise the age to buy tobacco and tobacco delivery products from 19 to 21. I'm doing so because that issue of cancer and having cancer is dear to me. Inglewood was the first town in New Jersey to pass such a legislation, and I happened to be at that meeting. I frequent a lot of meetings for different causes, different reasons, advocating for towns and people of the towns. I thought it best that in order for that ordinance to be helpful, to go to the bordering towns of Teaneck and Hackensack. Teaneck passed the ordinance. Hackensack, the town which I've lived in for the last 12 years, has still yet to pass it, but the mayor has promised me it's going to go for a vote. I went to Garfield. I went to East Rutherford. I went to Rutherford. I went to Little Ferry. I went to a lot of towns, Harrisburg Heights. And so far there have been 7, going on 8 towns when Rutherford is going to pass it next month. And they have raised the age to buy tobacco and delivery products from 19 to 21. You have a nice town here, a beautiful town. You have folks that have been here for generations. And you have a lot of new families that come in. I know firsthand because I worked for Weicker Realtors for 10 years right here in town. Smokers, I don't know if any of you smoke. Most smokers start, 90% of smokers start before the age of 21. 80% before 21. 90% before 21, 80% before 18. I'm sure there's people that are old enough on the council to say that there was a time when we could be at this meeting right now and be smoking. You could smoke on a plane, you could smoke in restaurants, and for health concerns, some of those luxuries have passed, if you want to call it a luxury. Back in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, you used to be able to drink alcohol at the age of 19 and 20. The federal government stopped that because we could have a drink right now at a young age and go out and cause some harm to someone immediately. Unfortunately, that was never done with cigarettes because the effects of cigarettes takes a long time. And not everybody's going to get cancer that smokes cigarettes, but the effects take years and years and years. I like to promote good health, folks who live in harmony as best they can, and for folks to live as long as they possibly can. Smoking and smoking-related illnesses are the #1 preventable cause of death and disease in the world. New York City, in the 5 boroughs, you have to be 21. There's a town in Massachusetts, Needham, Massachusetts, over 10 years ago. They were the first to pass this ordinance. In 6 years, they saw their high school age kids, the reduction in smoking, 46% in 6 years.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that we have not considered this to this point, but we all read the newspapers, and I'm aware of surrounding towns that are now doing this. I'm going to suggest that we put this on our next work session for consideration. I would be surprised if we don't adopt it, because it makes perfectly good sense. And we just spent an hour outside talking about health and wellness, and certainly this goes a long way towards that. So I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and I think you'll be pleased with the impact you've had on us.
And just in closing, if I may, Mr. Mayor, CVS, a brand that we all know and trust, they stopped selling cigarettes, and they have had no adverse effects in business. I know one of the things that the town has to do is ensure that businesses can be, successful. And I would declare that there's no business that would go out of business because they're not able to sell cigarettes to 19 and 20-year-olds. And also I'm going to leave, if I may, a packet from GAS, which is a state agency that I'm working with that the town may be familiar with. They promote smoke-free parks. And also the ordinance, a copy of the ordinance for the attorney to look at. That TNEC passed.
We've done that.
We've done
Yeah.
that with a smoke-free.
Right, yeah, I'm sure, yeah, all the
And
towns.
the only reason I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
we
it's-
have to go into closed session at 8:30. We have
No.
a phone conference coming up.
I understand, and
We certainly hear you loud and clear, and like I said, I truly, we all, I think, appreciate the fact that you brought this to our attention, and we should be amongst the first towns that do pass this ordinance, because that's where we want to be.
and I thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that cares to speak on non-agenda items? Okay, I'm going to ask you to make it short, though, because we have a phone conference at 8:30, and
Hi, greetings, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Miller from 187 Leroy Street in Tenafly. I'm a resident since 1988. I'm a coach in town for 22 years, though I think I just recently retired about 2 years ago. I'm surprised that I didn't see Mayor Rustin still on the field then. I'm here to inquire about 53 Knickerbocker and the designation of it as historic. I understand there was a vote, and the vote was not approved. So I was curious as to the reason for that, and
Jeff, you mean not approved for historic designation, right?
for historic designation. So I was curious as to the reason overall as a body, why it seems to hit so many bars at so many levels that it seems essential to the borough to sort of maintain its history and roots, and I wasn't sure how.
well,
A no vote came
it
to be.
appears we're going to have an in-depth conversation about this at our next work session.
Okay.
And, personally, I can review what went down with you at the last meeting, but we do have to get into a closed session at 8:30.
So I would urge you to please reconsider
Well, I
taking
think,
up such
that's
a,
the sense that we are going to reconsider it. But there's it's a very difficult equation, unfortunately. I wish it was very simple, but it's not.
but I think there might be some interesting possibilities for solutions that need to be
Absolutely.
explored. I'm happy to share my thoughts
I
with
would-
everybody
We would
along the way.
appreciate that, and it might even be helpful if you could put something in writing and get it to us prior to that meeting, so we have something to think about.
So-
Come to the next meeting.
The next
Is that
meeting
June
is
30th?
June
is
30th.
is June
June
30th, or is
yeah.
there a work session ahead of that? Is there a reason?
It's a mix, it's a combination, work session, public meeting. Nothing will be voted, if we were to discuss 53 Knickerbocker and come to a conclusion, I don't think it would be voted on the 30th, but it would be moved forward.
So one thing specifically I would urge your body to do and the planning board is to make sure that before any decisions get made, that at the very least we do a complete inventory and assessment of all the plants and trees that are there. I'm not sure that the existing plans before the planning board reflect the legacy trees and shrubs that are there that are 200-year-old plants that sort of ought to be as part of the environmental legacy of the town as well. So I just urge that as part of your process, and I thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dennis.
Jeff.
I'm going to entertain a motion to go into closed session. And folks, I think we pretty much covered the agenda tonight. So we will not be
There
open.
is one more thing of the agenda. Last time we talked about putting together an inventory of the streets that we can take a look of the, it was not prepared. Let's have it for the next meeting.
Well, I
Oh,
don't know that
the
it can
roads.
be done that quickly.
It can't be done that quickly. We
We
will.
have 200 streets
yeah.
in town.
Well, we have the inventory for the next streets, so those can be put together quickly.
Please.
Resolved to comply with NJSA 10:4-12, Mayor and Council of the Borough of Tenafly going to close executive session, discuss the following matters. The first is a personnel matter. It's an update on the status of our appointment or potential appointment of the CFO. And the second is a litigation matter concerning the pending litigation, Latz versus Borough of Tenafly. Latz versus Borough of Tenafly. Minutes will be taken of this meeting and released to the public at the time the matters are resolved. After this closed executive session, the Mayor and Council will reconvene in the Richard T. Wilson Committee Room to adjourn this public meeting.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you for coming out tonight, folks.